Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions, where we are critical, not cynical, of the music we listen to. We're going to finish off this week's theme of music inspired by art, checking out a track called For Victory by Bolt Thrower. This is based off of a poem. In fact, it contains the entirety of the poem. It's a whole four-line stanza written by Lawrence Binion, colloquially referred to as the Ode of Remembrance, though it does not seem to have an original name for the poem. Alright, let's dive into this and see what Bolt Thrower is bringing to the table today. Hopefully it's not bolts.
Daylight returns, the fires of hope still burn. Along the dark lights, sitting by the
Really nice groove going on.
just fall from eyes. Not sure what has been done. Sorrow creeps out my soul. All is lost, none have won.
I love the snare just hitting on 2 and 4 while the bass kick and the cymbals are going bonkers on these 16th notes.
The back of smoke remains. Begin to feel the pain. Alone now stagger on. Unsure how it begun. Through time, walking nails. The tears cast aside.
The chord they're using is interesting, or the key, I should say. This part's just pure aggression. But the other section, it's like a half Phrygian. It kind of goes in that direction but doesn't commit to it. It's really interesting. Like a pentatonic Phrygian.
As fire fills the sky, we once believed in life. Now, time to die for victory.
Yeah, just really going with the full-on aggression, rule of cool style of metal writing, just these really powerful, fast riffs. Yeah, I like the use of the motif throughout that guitar solo. A lot of repeated ideas while utilizing them in variations against other concepts.
In that story, man's final destiny, final rise to pay for victory.
Oh, that's a fun ending to that. Interesting. Yeah, put a harmony on it. Let's go. Why is the snare just a hair behind the beat?
As we got left,
Feels like we're slowing down, but we're not.
it shall not free them. No baby is condemned. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them.
All right. Not not what I was expecting given the inspiration. But a fun track from start to finish. Um, kind of moves between two modes. We have our uh, the quasi Phrygian mode where the vocals sing on top of in the first two verses. And then that contrasts with the purely instrumental, just heavy driving section. Our guitar kicks, I think our guitar comes down an octave to get into a more grittier range, and then also kicks up the distortion a bit. They have more of a secondary tone that they utilize when they're not playing a lead line. Um, and what's really cool about both of these is we shift between the groove of the first section, which is what our intro was based. Actually, I think our intro was our verse musically, just without the lyrics on top, the vocal work. And it just has this really nice groove to it. We even heard it right there at the end, coming out of the song. It's contrasted heavily with constant 16th notes, just going the thrash route. Bass kicks are doing 16th notes. Hi-hat, ride cymbal, one of the cymbals doing 16th notes. Guitars just playing fast, getting those 16th notes out as well, but they have movement to them. It's not just a steady note. It's the pitch is changing, and it's melodic ideas going on in there. And it's just this driving intensity with the only thing pulling back at all is our snare on 2 and 4. And that is interesting because it provides almost this halftime feel. Everything else is rushing so quickly, 4 hits per every beat, and our snare is only doing 1 hit per every other beat. um, so it's an 8-to-1 ratio. Everybody else is playing 8 notes for every one snare note. That's how infrequently our snare is hitting. But because of that, we get this really nice backbeat halftime feel where you can kind of lean into that and get this nice slow groove that we had from the previous section if you don't want to go into like thrash, whiplash, headbanging, break your neck kind of stuff. You can continue on with that nice chill groove in the background to move your body to. And that contrast there is just really neat on a groove level, on a listener level. Because we definitely could have put blast beats in there, or we could have done snares on every beat, or even put them at eighth notes, so that it's still less frequent than everything else, but still bringing some of that intensity. But instead, we contrasted the intensity that everything's bringing with a bit of this chill, held back, reserved strike. I mean, everything else is constant. There's no accents in it. It's all flat. Everything is the same attack. But then these snare hits, they're just cracks. They cut through everything. And I really like that contrast. The speed versus the laid back. And we go through these two ideas a few times. And a lot of it just kind of, it feels cool. It sounds awesome. It's just, metal riffage. That sounds great. I'm not sure that I really get a story out of any of this like I do with other tracks. And it's because I think it's because I'm having a real hard time pegging the emotional aspect of our atmospheres. There is just raw aggression in the constant 16th notes. I don't think there's anything else there, at least for me. Maybe somebody else will hear this and they'll listen past the the sonic assault of all those attacks and hear something melodic within. And like I said, there is melody, moving melody going on in the guitars. I didn't really pick up on it though. I don't know if it's because the notes were too fast and I didn't get to hear them. They weren't stayed on long enough that I could pick up the attributes of all of the notes held together to form like a chordal structure to that section. Or maybe it's just because I can't get past the production and sound of the metaliness. All those attacks certainly are the forefront of the sound at the moment, and there could be some interesting things put underneath that I just missed. But even when we get to the first section, it has really nice groove, and it is a cool sound. Like I said, it's an interesting sound. It's half Phrygian. It feels like it wants to be, but doesn't resolve the way Phrygian does. Um, I I really wish I knew what chord or mode they were utilizing there, or even just key. Um, because it intrigues me. It's a very neat one. Uh, but I also, because I've never heard it before, I'm really trying to read it for the first time, basically, and I'm not getting any emotional pull out of that. So, you know, I mentioned that I don't know the story here because I can't feel the emotion out of it, and I'm going to put most of that on me because I just explained that one. One of the sections is brand new to my ears, and I haven't quite got a read on it, and the other one is I'm not getting past the surface level feeling, just that raw aggression. So it's very possible it's on me that that I'm not getting this out, and not that they didn't put a story into or emotional aspects into their thematic music playing. We come out of these two sections, we head into a solo. I enjoyed the solo for the most part. It was a little repetitious, a little too typical metal-y, kind of just keep playing vibe. I prefer just a little bit of extra air, but it works well with what they're doing, especially coming off of, I think we came off of the 16th note section. So we already had a ton of movement, a ton of attacks. It makes sense just to carry that energy into the solo and keep working with that. However, I really enjoyed the idea of the use of motif, utilizing one idea frequently and changing the ideas between them. So that was pretty neat. Um, and then that ran us into our outro, which wasn't too different from the rest of the sections. It follows a pretty typical A B C B pattern, where after our bridge we return to the ideas we visited before in our verse and chorus. That is a real quick breakdown of the music. What's interesting here, well, let me talk about the vocals real quick. They're very aggressive. They're not growls. I can hear a vocal cord usage in here. There is pitch, but it's very uh, compressed. There's a grit to it. It's really getting into it. And there are a couple of sections that I feel are moving closer into the growl section. Maybe they are more traditional growls just with good enunciation. I could pick up some words when he got into his growlier bits. And again, I don't know if that's because they weren't full growls, they were half growls, or if just really great enunciation, just really great clarity on the pronunciations of everything. But they didn't feel like growls to me. But it's very possible this is just a style of growl I haven't heard before too. It's a very aggressive vocal style though, and it goes well with the music. Interestingly, I think it goes better with the aggressive music than the chiller, groovier side of the song, but it still fits with the overall vibes of the track. I want to mention that and all the music because none of that's what I was expecting from the poem. Let me read you the poem. It happens to be the last two stanzas of the song as well, lyric wise. They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. It was a poem written for fallen soldiers. Um, don't remember which war we were talking about. I wish I had a date on this. Um, but if I remember correctly, it was written for fallen soldiers, and is utilized often. You might have even seen it if you have family members in the military on gravestones and plaques and stuff like that. It is a very widely used poem. It is, as the name suggests, an ode to remembrance, to remember them as they were. It is hopeful yet solemn. It is a bit of mourning in there, but also a hopeful one. Even goes on to, um, well, yeah, it's hopeful and mourning, right? We're not weird, like sad, but happy, right? I was expecting a song a bit more somber, and instead I get this constant, well, for the most part, a sonic assault, but when we're not in that, just really groovy metal. And the vocals keep the aggression up when we aren't doing the 16th note hits from the band. So somebody is always bringing an aggressive element to the song. I think the only time we get away from that is the guitar solo section, and that's just because I can't remember. Yeah, wait, do we have the 16th note idea going on underneath all that? If so, sorry. If so, there is no moment of the track where we move away from aggression entirely. Those seem to clash for me. um, and for that reason, I want to dive into the lyrics here a little bit and see what the rest of the song is doing lyrically and see possibly if I can figure out what the song is trying to achieve or if it's just bolt thrower being bolt thrower and having this poem injected into the song. Um, so yeah, let's dive into this. As daylight returns, the fires of hope still burn, crawl through darkened light, sickened by the mournful sight. Tears fall from eyes not sure what has been done. Sorrow creeps throughout my soul, all is lost, none have won. The battle smoke remains, begin to feel the pain, alone now stagger on, unsure how it began. So, given that third stanza specifically, and the album art, which I'm going to pull back up for you real quick so you can check this out. We do have silhouettes of soldiers in the foreground against a ocean lake of some sort with a sunrise or set behind them, coloring a very dramatic lighting with tons of shadowing, lots of black, but also shades of orange and yellow. Also, I didn't notice this. I really like how the bright white spot of the sunlight um, up here in the top right corner bleeds into the logo with the E and the R also having this white in this area and the orange surrounding it. In fact, the lighter orange and the dark orange fits with the background. So yeah, I really dig that. The background is bleeding into the logo. Very, very nice little touch there. Anyways, we have these soldiers on the front though. And this third line says that the battle smoke remains. It makes me think that these opening lines are in the middle of war, or in the middle of combat at least. The daylight returns and the fires of hope still burn. So it becomes daylight and people still have hope that they can succeed, possibly. Uh, it says, crawl through the darkened light and be sickened by the mournful sight. Um, the darkened light is a really interesting phrase. I wonder if that means dawn. When it's still dark out, but the sun is on the horizon, the light is coming, but at least in a pedestrian sense, I would still need to turn my lights on my car despite the sun being up. There's still brightness, but it's not bright out. but I like the darkened light. That's such a beautiful phrase. Um, Sickened by the mournful sight, looking at all the death and destruction around. Tears fall from eyes, not sure what has been done. Sorrow creeps through my soul. All is lost, none have won. Looking at the fact that there are no winners in war, only losers. And feeling the pain and suffering, the emotional weight of the surroundings of this person. Um, Now, this line begins to get interesting. Battle smoke remains. So there's still smoke from a recent combat encounter, right? Could be an explosion just went off or, whatever. Begin to feel the pain. Alone now stagger on, unsure how it began. I wonder if this means that they have been wounded and they're just now beginning to realize this. The pain has set in, or if this is an emotional pain tying back to our second stanza. Through time, war prevails. Thoughts, fears cast aside, face the consequence alone with honor, valor, pride. This is interesting because we have a flip there. It almost feels like our first two lines are about why war continues. War is always there, it's always prevalent. Um, oh no, okay, so I read that the wrong. The second line says thoughts and fears cast aside. So war is always going to be there through time, from the beginning to whenever. Just there is no hope for humanity to get past this separation of selves, of cultures, of countries, of whatever, that there will always be war. And the soldier must cast aside their fear and face the consequences alone with honor, valor, and pride. As fires fill the sky, we once believed in life. Now it's time to die for victory. Now, in death's glory, man's final destiny, the final price to pay for victory. And this is interesting. This is where the song, to me, kind of takes a turn. For the first three lines, I almost felt it was going to be anti war, and I don't know if that's just because we typically have, anytime war comes up, they're kind of anti war tracks on this channel. But it does seem to be talking about all the negativity of it, mournful sights, the emotional toil, the emotional weight of being in combat, of seeing these sights, feeling the pain of it all. But it turns that and says, from that we should find strength to push on and achieve victory even at the cost of our own life. Interesting twist there. As you guys probably know from some of my other lyrical breakdowns of anti war tracks, this is not something I agree with, but I respect their ability as artists to dig into it because it's not even necessarily a praising of this mindset. This is just art, and art should be able to dive into things like this. Uh, so we went from an anti-war track to an almost patriotic track, where um, giving up one's life for the betterment of your country or your side or your group of people that you're fighting with is is a worthwhile price to pay as long as your side achieves victory. And then at the end of this, we get the poem. They shall not grow old as we are left to grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning we will remember them. So yeah, I think that's pretty straightforward. Lyrically, anyways. Tying it back to the song though, I mean the first three stanzas, I can see the connection there. There's a lot of aggression in the music, and that aggression ties into the scenery, the battlefield that's being painted here. While there is a somber element in the lyrics themselves, and an emotional toil and the fear and weight of seeing all this, war is typically an aggressive action. Combat is typically an aggressive environment. So pairing these lyrics with the music kind of works in that sense. And if the music had been any lighter and went for a somber take, it might have undercut what I think is the turn in the lyrics of pushing this towards more of a positive, we'll get stronger and achieve our goals out of this sorrow angle. But I will say that saying the poem in that aggressive vocals with the aggressive music under it, it takes a very different turn. I mentioned that the poem to me is a mix of somber and joyful, of the happiness of remembering these people and trying to remember them in the best way that you can. But with the vocals the way they are, it kind of feels like to me of a sort of pride in the death, pride of these, having a pride for these people sacrificing themselves for your side, your group, your country, whatever, to be victorious in their war. And like I mentioned earlier, there's at least to me, a strong sense of nationalism in this song. And that nationalistic pride, I think, comes through very strongly with the way that the music is utilized to bring this poem to life, to sonic quality, to sound. Poems are just written. It's how you say them, what kind of music you put behind them when you bring them to the spoken word that can change them, or not even just change them, can also just strengthen them. Compound what they're already doing. But yeah, to me, this reads very differently, which is an interesting take on it. Not that I think it was an anti war poem to begin with, it definitely seemed very pro military, pro veteran specifically, or even just technically just pro soldiers in general. But it really leans hard into that angle with the music as it is. So it's really interesting to hear how music can change the perspective of words, how I read it differently when I, just read it off of a page versus when it was sung to me in the way that it was with the music around it. Those are my thoughts on Bolt Throwers for Victory. It's where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this or not, anything that stood out to you, anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on. Go ahead and let me know in the comments section. Above that is a description box, and in there is a link for Linktree. It'll take you to this menu right here, has links for everything related to the channel, such as all the communities that exist around the channel, such as Twitter, and Discord, as well as ways to support the channel, such as special selection and Patreon. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. We have a creator request coming up if you're watching this live in another minute and a half. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow with an album review. Fingers crossed this one does not get blocked. The Catatonia one? No, the Idola one is still blocked. Unfortunately, it can take up to 30 days. I'm hoping it gets unblocked soon. When it does, I'll of course let everyone know. But last week's album review is still blocked. Hopefully tomorrow's isn't. Sunday we'll have a live stream for the patrons. Monday that live stream will be available for everyone to watch. And of course we'll be starting our next week's theme on Monday as well. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Alright, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.